Hello YouTube fam, my name is Gina Marie and thank you for visiting my channel. This is where I talk about solved and unsolved, true crime stories, anything true crime really, as well as missing persons cases that I feel have not gotten enough of mainstream media's attention. If you are interested in these types of cases as I am, then I do hope that you will subscribe to this channel, and if you click that little bell that's next to the subscribe button, YouTube will notify you when I upload new content. So first I would like to apologize for being missing in action as of late. As I mentioned before, I do have MS, which stands for multiple sclerosis, and sometimes it keeps me from being able to express my thoughts properly or even form words correctly, which is pretty much a requirement for filming these videos. I am not at 100% as of right now, but I'm sure you guys will bear with me because the show must go on. Today is another Did You Know episode. This one is the serial killer edition, so let's begin. Did you know that the FBI has defined a serial killer as being someone who kills 2 or more people in separate events with a cooling off period in between killings? Did you know that there is a difference between being a serial killer, a spree killer, and a mass murderer? As I said, to be dubbed a serial killer, you have got to at least kill 2 people at separate times with the cooling off period in between. A spree killer also has to kill 2 or more people, but without that cooling off period between murders. And then a mass murderer, they have to have killed 4 or more people during the same incident with no distinctive periods between murders, and usually this happens in a single location. Did you know that there are 4 different types of serial killers according to the FBI's website? The visionary killers usually suffer from mental illness, though let me just say that they should have elaborated on that a little bit on their site. Most people who suffer from mental illness do not go on to kill even one person, let alone become a serial killer. The next one is mission-oriented killers, and they have specific purposes to justify their killings, like, okay, I want to rid the world of all drug addicts or sex workers, or God told me to do it, and he's doing it for the greater good, etc. Power and control killers, they usually feel powerless and controlled in their everyday lives, and killing gives them this sense of power and control that they crave and that they feel is deserved. And then finally, hedonistic killers. This type of serial killer just pretty much does it for the thrill, the adrenaline of it, and then what else they can acquire on top of that. For example, money or fame, something like that. Many serial killers tend to stick to patterns, and they don't even realize that they are doing it. And in many times, that is what leads to their capture. Did you know that serial killers, most of them, have things in common? Besides the fact that they're serial killers, of course, one of which is called the serial killer trifecta. These are actions exhibited during their lives, usually during adolescence, and one is fire starting, another is animal torture and killing, and the third is bedwetting. Did you know that many serial killers still have a bedwetting problem even as adults? That'll go over well with the other inmates, I'm sure. Did you know that about 60% of serial killers are apprehended? That means that 40% of them get away with their crimes. That's a little frightening. Did you know that there's 1,172 serial killers that were apprehended in the United States during the 20th century? Did you know that there are an estimated 25 to 50 active serial killers at any given time in the United States, and that on average, each of us will walk past a serial killer at least 36 times in our lifetime? Did you know that approximately 68% of all of the world's serial killers combined were in the United States? That is 3 times more serial killers per capita than any other country in the world. On a list of how many known serial killers each country has, from greatest to least, the U.S. was number 1 at 3,204. Second place was England with only 166, and that is a huge difference. I really wonder why that is. And I would love to know your thoughts on this. Shoot me a comment on this video and let me know. Did you know that in the U.S., 73% of serial killers are white? BT dubs, only 60.1% of the population in the United States is white. Did you know that 16% of serial killers that have been arrested since 1820 in the United States were women. A study showed that both female and male serial killers kill for the same reasons, and that the main difference between male and female serial killers is that female serial killers generally do not usually mutilate, or sexually assault their victims. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Clown Killer, sexually assaulted and killed at least 33 boys and young men. Did you know that he hid so many bodies in the crawl space under his house that he shared with his wife and children that the bones of his victims fused together, and it took over 2 years for investigators to sort them out and put them into each victim's separate complete skeletons? Did you know that traveling serial killers are quite rare? The majority stick to a small area, and it's usually one that they know intimately. It could be where they grew up or live now, where they work, anywhere that has a strong meaning to them. Did you know that only 1% of all murders in the United States are perpetrated by a serial killer? Because serial killings are actually quite rare. Louis Garavito is officially called the world's worst serial killer. Did you know that he confessed to murdering 140, was convicted for killing 189, and is confirmed to have killed 193, and is thought to have killed as many as 400 boys ages 8 through 16 in the 7 years between 1992 and 1999. He would put the bodies of his victims into mass graves, and it is unknown if all of the grave sites have been discovered yet. He was given a life sentence, by the way. Pedro Alonso Lopez, also known as the Monster of the Andes, is considered to be the world's second worst serial killer. He, like Garavito, was from Colombia. He committed his murders in Peru, Colombia, and Ecuador, and unfortunately, he was finally apprehended in Ecuador. I'll explain why I said unfortunately in just a second. Did you know he was convicted of raping and killing 110, confessed to 240, and is thought to have killed upwards of 340 girls ages 9 through 12 from 1969 to 1980. Now, why I said it was unfortunate is because he was arrested in Ecuador, and Ecuador does not have a death penalty. The maximum sentence allowed under Ecuadorian law is 16 years. He was convicted of 110 murders and was given 16 years. That is 1 month per murder victim. And this douche canoe was released 2 years early for good behavior. Are you freaking kidding me? After serving 14 years, he was released from prison and deported back to Colombia, his hometown, to face multiple charges for murders that he committed there too. Lopez later said that he feared that he would be found guilty and have to face the firing squad for his crimes there. But sadly, of course, the authorities couldn't prove their case against Lopez. And instead of being given the death penalty, he was declared as insane, and he was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, and then only 3 years later he was said to be sane and released with a $70 bond. And he immediately absconded, which is ran off, and even to this day his whereabouts are unknown. He still has not been caught, so who knows how many more mass graves that he might have filled since then. Did you know that the methods used to kill by the majority of serial killers in the United States are strangulation and shooting? Did you know that when some people think about a serial killer and the horrendous crimes that they commit, they picture a monster? I mean, what other than a monster could do these things to another human being? Some would say that they would know if someone was that evil just by looking at him. And did you know that most serial killers have a steady job? They generally live in middle-class neighborhoods with their children, their spouses. They are often described as being great fathers, great husbands. They're funny, they're friendly, the neighbors love them. They seem so normal. They are able to evade capture for so long because of their ability to blend into communities and seem quote-unquote normal. Did you know that about 20% of the known serial killers in the United States had some type of major head trauma years before their first kill? Studies have shown that this small percentage of serial killers mainly had accidents that left them with brain damage to their frontal lobe when they were children. Generally speaking, though, they are not considered to be insane in the eyes of the law. Most try to avoid arrest, but if they were insane, they would not know that what they were doing was wrong, and that's why. Did you know that a person's IQ has absolutely nothing to do with whether or not they become a serial killer? The average IQ range in the United States is between 95 and 105, and that would be considered normal. The average serial killer has an IQ of 94.5, which is just barely under that. Jeffrey Dahmer's IQ was 145, which is at the highly gifted range, and he killed 17 people in 13 years. Gary Ridgway, who is also known as the Green River Killer, killed a minimum of 50 to 70 people, and he avoided capture for 20 years, but his IQ was at a mere 82. Did you know that serial killer Mac Ray Edwards worked for California Department of Transportation, which is also known as Caltrans? He buried his victims and then later helped build the highways over the graves. They have not found all of his victims. So if you have ever been to California and you drove the highways, there is a good chance that you've already driven over their gravesites. Dennis Rader. Have you heard of him? Did you know that he was so pathetic that he tried to give himself, actually he succeeded in giving himself, his own serial killer nickname? He called himself BTK, and it stood for Bind Them, Torture Them, Kill Them. He killed at least 10 women between 1974 and 1991. Did you know that he wrote misspelled letters, clues, codes, riddles, puzzles, and so forth, and sent them to the newspapers and would tell them that you either publish these ramblings or else I will murder more people. So they published it. Did you know that he led a seemingly normal life himself? He graduated from college as criminal justice major, of course, had a home in a middle-class neighborhood, got married, had 2 children, was president of his church congregation, and was a Boy Scout troop leader. He was very well liked by those who knew him and was described as, guess what, a great husband and father and neighbor. Radar is a moron. He had an IQ of 85. He got away with murdering 10 people for almost 30 years, but his need to get more attention got him arrested. He was given life in prison without the possibility of parole for 175 years, and he is still to this day incarcerated. Did you know that Rader has an application process that one must go through in order to be permitted the honor of getting to write to him letters in jail? What a fucking douche canoe. Earlier I talked about the worst and second worst serial killers in the world. Now I'll talk about the most prolific or worst and second worst serial killers in the U.S. Did you know that Gary Ridgway, also known as the Green River Killer, is considered to be the second worst serial killer in the United States? Did you know that he was convicted of 49 murders but confessed to 71? And those happened between 1992 and 1999. He preyed on sex workers and drug addicts, those people that he didn't think anyone would miss, and police probably wouldn't bother to investigate much because of their lifestyles, and he was right as far as the police were concerned, but their families missed them. Did you know that the U.S.'s most prolific serial killer, according to the FBI, is Samuel Little? Did you know that although 50 of his murders have been confirmed, he has confessed to killing 93, and the FBI believe his confession completely. It has been confirmed that Little was killing from 1970 to 2005. He was a rare serial killer in a few ways. He was African American. He traveled all over the United States, killing along the way, and he committed his first murder not until he was 30 years old. And he stopped killing years before he was arrested. Most serial killers will continue to kill until they're captured. Did you know that 22% of serial killers killed went to prison and then were released and then started killing again? So they could have been stopped. Did you know that the number of serial killings are on decline? And it has been declining since the 80s. It peaked in the 80s. Did you know that over 1/2 of all victims of a serial killer were underneath the age of 30? Only 18% of victims are under age 18 and 10% are over the age of 60. Did you know that 31% of serial killers kill simply for the enjoyment that they get in doing so? Again, the hedonistic killer. I can go on and on about individual serial killers and statistics, and even though I am fascinated by the subject, I can't even lie, I really hate giving them a whole lot of airtime. These people love the attention, acting almost as if they are famous movie stars. They like feeling like they're important and memorable, but to me, the important ones that need to be remembered are the families of the victims and the victims themselves. And with that, it's time for me to bring this video to an end. If you enjoyed this broadcast, please hit the like button, comment down below. If you have a story that you would, or a case that you would like me to look into, please put that in the comment section. And I hope to see you soon. Live your best lives and stay safe out there.